this episode of 419 by Design, we'll be visiting the beautiful Copper Moon Studio right here in Toledo, Ohio.
So this is Copper Moon Studio, and what I am is a fused glass and metal studio that we opened up back in 2006. So I actually started, when I began 23 years ago, was actually with stained glass. Picked that up, did that for years. So it was 12 years ago that I had actually decided to open the business. So I did a lot of stained glass and fused glass right in the beginning. When we moved to this location just about 7 years ago, we wanted to incorporate metal into the design. But pretty much off the top of adding the metal into it was just that difference of another material to add to what we always did with the glass. So my husband came in and he started doing the metal work for us. So now we are a fused glass gallery and also metal work. I always loved copper, the look of copper. Moon represents a new beginning, which is kind of how we came up with the name of it.
Pam and Chris are Toledoans who recently moved to sunny South Carolina. A year ago, they came into Copper Moon and found a piece of glass art they loved. A year later, they've returned to have Stacy build them a custom piece all their own.
All right, hi Pam and Chris, how are you guys?
Good.
All right, so we're a year later from when you guys had come into the shop, and we still want the glass piece.
Yes. Absolutely.
Which I love.
We've been all around. I mean, we found 2 other pieces. We were, okay, this, that, and then we were even in Charleston going through art galleries and nothing.
Nothing compared.
Nothing that, you know, it's always, oh, we like the glass. We like that better.
To me, I say what. So we still want to talk about like the colors that we want to choose.
Right.
So I know we had a couple colors that you liked that was in the existing one, and we're going to switch and kind of do a couple new colors to add so it works with your environment, you know, all the decor that you have around the house. So we're going to look at like the turquoise blue. So I have like the old one that we had. So we're going to go with like the turquoise blue color that we had before. And we're gonna go with the peacock color, which is kind of like a teal, little bit of color.
That'd be good.
We're gonna switch out the Amazon color, and we're gonna switch out the jade color, and we're gonna move in a cobalt, which is gonna be the darker blue. And then we're gonna add in the lemongrass, which is gonna give you a little bit more of a bright green color on. So what I'll plan on doing is I will get everything put together. I'll kind of go through the whole process of what we're going to kind of do. And then I know we talked about transportation and doing the crate and everything like that. And you guys are here in town.
Brought the crate.
Brought the crate. So I'm going to go ahead and do the project, and then you guys can come back and I'll have it ready for you. And I'll package everything up for you guys, and then head on home for our 10-hour drive. On the way.
Take a piece of Toledo with us.
All right, I like it. So fused glass is done by layering different layers of glass and colors and clear glass to kind of create whatever design that it is that you're going to be creating. So the piece that I'm working on today is a multicolored wall piece that's going to have several different layers, several different lengths onto the glass, and pretty much I'm going to create everything and put them into the glass kiln, where the glass kiln is going to melt everything to become one giant piece. So the top layer that I'm working on right here is what we have is just our normal sheet of clear glass that I have, and what I'm working with is what we call glass line, which is a black liquid glass. So it's a very fine powder that's in here. And that helps me to be able to draw, paint, do some lettering, anything like that, that kind of creates. The design on this one is just kind of a random pattern that I'm going to be doing the liquid glass kind of all over the top of it. The whole wall piece is about 44 inches long, so I'm using a full 48 by 48 piece of glass. And pretty much it's just kind of like scribbling as like a 4-year-old. So I'm just about done with it. I don't want to do too much extra work onto it because it's starting to dry. I like what I'm looking at. Maybe just a few little imperfections, but we'll wait on once it dries and I can move that, change it up if I need to.
Stacy's husband Dan handles all the metal work at Copper Moon. Today they're working together on a metal and glass project that's very popular in the shop.
Today we're going to be making a flower garden stake base out of steel. First the pieces come in, round rod for the main piece. Something like this here. We're going to be cutting the flowers out with our CNC plasma cutter. I'll be welding them and then we'll ship them up front for Stacy to put the glass portion on. This is our CNC plasma table, so we'll go ahead and fire it up. Well, here we are with the piece fresh off the table. We're going to take this piece and we're going to weld it onto the garden stake.
Okay, aspiring glass artists, do you know the term for forming glass using heat and gravity? Is it A, molding, B, slumping, or C, dipping? The answer to that, and we'll get back to all these projects when we return to 419 by Design.
BCAN.
BCAN.
BCAN. BCAN.
BCAN.
What's the term for molding glass using heat and gravity? If you guessed slumping, you're right.
What I'm going to do right now is start going to grab the colors that they chose for this big wall piece, which we have 4 colors. So most of our colors come about 24 by 24, which is 2 by 2 feet. And then I'm going to cut it into the strips that I need for the wall piece. So the first color they picked is our peacock, which is kind of what I consider like to be like a tealish color. It's got a little bit of greenish blue kind of tone into it. So I got my ruler, which is what I use to get my straight cuts on everything. We have two different tools that we use for glass cutting. We have our glass scorer and our glass breaker. The glass scorer has a little bit of like a diamond kind of blade that's on here. It just puts a scratch onto the glass. So what I do is I have my ruler right here in place of where I'm going to make my score mark. Then what I'm going to do is start at the bottom and glide my score right on the side of it. What it has on here is you're going to see like a very fine white line. See if I can kind of get you guys up so you can see it. This tells me that I had a good score. Good score usually means a good break onto my glass. Have my breaker. There's always a little bit of line on here. Your breaker has what you call a little bit of a frown. So it's gonna push down from the top while it pushes up. What it's gonna do is just snap your glass right into half. So I'm gonna hold up just a little bit, because if you look at how much weight I have on this side and a very small strip on this side, a lot of times this is the weight difference that can crack the piece where it wants to go instead of where you want it to go. So what I'm gonna do is just hold up just a little bit to put some weight pressure off onto it, put a little squeeze, and then the glass is gonna break off just like that. So right now I'm just cutting different strips. I'm not 100% sure yet until I kind of lay this all out exactly what sizes I want to use. And only make it 43 kind of limits me a little bit on exactly all the strips that I have. So I'm going to kind of start off with my basic strips of doing a 2-inch, a 3, 3.5, and a 4-inch. So I'm going to cut one more and then we'll switch colors. I got my strips done on that one. Now, I am going to break up the big one. Makes my heart hurt. All right, so this next step, we're gonna go ahead and move the big sheet of clear over to be able to cut that down to match all the colors that I just cut. I'm gonna grab the big piece now. So let's keep our fingers crossed and we'll kind of see what kind of cuts I get on this one. Yay! Sorry, I get really excited when the glass cuts exactly the way that it's supposed to be.
Not only does Copper Moon make glass art, they teach glass art as well. They have classes on all different learning levels. Today, a local high school volleyball team has come in for a team building trip.
Welcome, Springfield volleyball team.
We're very fortunate to have Copper Moon a part of our Springfield community. I like to always support our community in any way possible, whether it's giving or being a part of it. And so we wanted to bring our girls to something that's so special within our community.
It's actually really relaxing, and it was just fun to be with my team and talk with each other and see what we can make and all that.
It helps us learn different things about each other and help us really bond before the beginning of the season.
So we offer a variety of classes here at Copper Moon. Fuse classes are really friendly medium. It's easy for beginners. You can learn the basics in a day.
When we're talking and helping each other, that can translate onto the court and in school and all that.
You can play with it for decades and never learn it all. So every time you come to create, it'll be like a new class.
So we are going to make the flower top, the glass piece that actually goes onto our flower garden stakes that we have. So what we're going to be using today is we're going to start off with, normally we use sheet glass. Today we're going to use what we call our glass frit, which is our sheet glass broken up into very fine pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my center piece first, and I'm just going to sprinkle the black, because what I want is a little bit of pop right into the middle of the glass piece. So what I'm doing right now is using the paintbrush to move around the glass. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the next color, which is our yellow. This is gonna be our centerpiece. So as we're laying this stuff up, you kind of have to think a little bit about how you want your glass to be visual. So right now I wanna make sure that my yellow, because I want it to be centered, that's the one that's gonna go down first, because what you're looking is for a tiered kind of look. So whatever you want to be your centerpiece, that's what you want to throw down first. So I'm gonna put the yellow down here first, and what I'm gonna do is just add a little bit out. You don't want this to be perfect either. Different is good. So next I'm gonna move on to our marigold color. It's a little bit darker. I'm just going to kind of bring this out a little bit because I want to have a little bit more of the orange and yellow to really pop onto the center here. All right, my last color then before I put my sheet glass on is what we have, a flame. So it's a little bit of a light, kind of brighter red color. It's like you're thinking this is like the perfect example of doing glassware via tie-dye. Okay, so I have all my colors that I want for my variation. What I'm going to grab is I already pre-cut my sheet glass out here. So what I did is I took a sheet of clear and put it over top of it and traced the shape so it gives me the petal look of what I want for the outside up to it. So with this I'm going to take my red is actually going to go down first. So that's just going to sit right up into this mold. And then I take my clear piece here. And it's going to have that frit is then just going to melt right into that and it's going to stick together. So how it's going to look like is this beautiful flower right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mold and I'm going to have my flower piece right here. It's going to sit right on top of this. Then what they're going to do is going to go back into the kiln again. At this point I'm not going to fire it as hot as what I do my full fuse onto it. Our slumping fires only to about 1250 degrees. What that does is it softens the glass to slowly just let it sit, and it's going to sink right into this glass mold that we have. It would sit just like this. Is what it's going to look like when I pull it onto the glass kiln. And at that point, I have my beautiful shape that I'm going for. All right, so now I'm going to grab the finished base. This is the beautiful metal stem that Dan made out back. I'm going to just set this right on top here. And then all I'm going to do is just attach my washer. And there we have our finished garden stake. Our shop tip for our table is one of the most important things is having a clean table. So after you're cutting glass, what you're going to have is little tiny shards that are going to kind of pop out all over the place. When you go to grab a new sheet of glass and you put it on, you're gonna get all this weird kind of scraping and some not so good noises. And what that does is when I go to score and break, there's gonna be like what you call like a pressure point, and a lot of times it's gonna snap your glass before you even score all the way through onto your glass. So what you wanna make sure is that you have a nice clean table. So you wanna make sure that you are brushing up all of the little teeny tiny shards onto your glass. And you'll be surprised that even the little ones can cause your glass to break. So you want to have a nice clean area right before we go to put all of our glass on our table to cut. So what we're gonna do now, we have all of our glass cut, our clear and all of our colors and everything. And what we're gonna do is load it into our glass kiln that we have. So the glass kiln is actually where everything melts together to become one whole piece. So like I was explaining earlier, fused glass is done by layering different layers of glass. When I design my pieces, because I don't want the glass to spread or melt out, I'm gonna go with just 2 layers on today's design that we're gonna kind of work with. So the part of what we're working with right now is in the glass kilns right here. It's very similar to what I call like a ceramic oven. A lot of people have seen like the ceramic ovens and everything. So these have different coils on here that they heat up to temperature. So on a larger piece like this, what I'm gonna do is ramp it down, meaning that I'm gonna slow my temperature when it's gonna get up to 1500 degrees. So that's the max temperature that we want it to melt at. So I'm gonna spend roughly about between an hour or 100 to 150 degrees an hour. So it's gonna take roughly about 15 hours for it to get up to temperature. At that point, I let it gradually cool till it gets down to about 1000 degrees. Once it holds out there, the cooling process is like the annealing process that actually becomes the glass to give it the strength that it has onto it. So normally if I were to take a sheet of glass and I throw it on the ground, of course it's gonna shatter. With fused glass, once it melted, it becomes very strong. So a lot of times I could throw it down very close to tempered glass. It's just gonna kind of maybe break in one main pieces or a couple. It's not gonna shatter into a separate pieces, but it becomes very strong. So right now what I'm gonna do is, this is kind of the fun part of how I'm gonna create this design, is by laying out the pieces and just kind of creating them in whatever direction that I want them to go. So sometimes I can get it on the first try. A lot of times it's me changing it around multiple times till I feel comfortable with the look that I want onto this glass piece. All right, we're going for it. I think this is how I like it. All right, so I now have the top layer of the glass moved over to the glass kiln. You put them onto the sides. It helps me kind of put it into place of where it's gonna go. Each one of these are just gonna be placed over top of the colors that I'm working with to match it up with exactly the size I cut the strips. So they just fit together. You need a nice snug fit so everything kind of matches up. Voila. Done. So what we're gonna do right now, once everything is all set, all my glass pieces are into the glass kiln, we're looking at probably 28 to 32 hours, depending on that the whole process of the glass kiln is gonna run. And now we'll shut the lid.
So after over a year of waiting, it's time for Pam and Chris to see their final custom art piece.
All right, guys. So I got the piece fired this over the weekend. I started this on Friday, and I finally got to, of course, I had to peek a little bit. I peeked yesterday afternoon. It was still kind of clean. So now we got it fully cooled down. It's at only about 85 degrees right now, so we can finally take a look at it. So wait. Ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Ooh.
That's exactly what we remember, but better.
Look at that.
The colors did work. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Can we touch it?
Yeah, you sure can. Nope. Nope, it's cooled down. I think the colors you guys chose are perfect. They matched up very well together, because sometimes you got to be worried about certain colors, you know, kind of, you know, fighting each other instead of having like a nice smooth combination between it, and it's really gonna pop on your guys as well.
Gorgeous.
It looks good.
Just what we wanted.
This is, yeah, this is better than for our house than what was hanging. These colors work so much better.
This is the second worst part about taking a big piece out. All right. right, you have the crate with you. I'm excited
It's in the
to
back
see
of
it.
the truck.
All right, you want to bring it in?
Let's go get it.